What really happened to the three Kansas City Chiefs fans found dead outside their friend's home? How could somebody not notice that their three dead friends were in their backyard for 2 full days? And how does this new photo change everything we know about the case? Hey, junkies, we have new info today on this mystery out of Kansas City, where three Kansas City Chiefs fans were found dead outside their friend's house. And there are way more questions than answers. And we're going to get to some of those answers finally today. It was at this house where a group of friends gathered to watch the Kansas City Chiefs. 2 days later, the man who lived at the house discovered his three dead friends in the backyard. None of the details in between make any sense, and all of the family members seem to understand this.
I'm furious. Everybody's furious. Nobody believes this story.
It's just a cover up. Something's wrong with the picture. Man up. Man up. Now tell us what happened. He knows. He has to know. He's a grown man too. He has to know what happened.
The only thing I know for a fact is I don't accept that my brother just froze to death. There has to be something else involved. Whether it's drugs or something else, I have no idea. His story does not add up. And I know that he's not telling the truth in some way or fashion.
So, what is Jordan Willis's story? Let's look at the timeline together. On January 7th at 3:25 p.m., that's when the Chiefs game was on. That's when they were gathering at this house to watch the game together. At 6:30, the Chiefs defeat the Chargers by a final score of 13-12. Johnson, Harrington, and McGeeney arrive at the home of Willis at some point after the game, according to the attorney. On January 7th at 7 p.m., Alex Weimer Lee arrives at the home of Jordan Willis. Yes, that's right. There was a fifth person here, and he's going to come into play in just a moment. McGeeney tells his cousin Alan that he and Johnson will take care of his construction job on Monday so that Alan can rest after suffering a back injury at 7:30. This happens. They're saying at that point they're planning on going to work on Monday. They're getting things ready for their week. January 8th, right after midnight, the fifth person, Weimer Lee, left the home. When he left, he said goodbye to his host and the three friends who were all watching Jeopardy. Just after midnight, they were all watching Jeopardy at the same time. At 12:30 a.m., Willis says he goes to bed while the three friends are still at his home. This is when things get a little more dicey in the timeline.
He says that if Willis, his client, had saw them outside, he would have, of course, ran to help. However, this attorney tells me his client slept in most of the day on Monday and didn't leave the house on Tuesday either because he works from home.
So the timeline is as follows. On Sunday, we have the Chiefs game. On Monday, Jordan Willis says he stayed home most of the day and didn't do much of anything. And on Tuesday, he was able to work from home. So during none of these hours, none of the time that passed, did he notice that there were three of his friends dead in his backyard. Now, this is absolutely not believable and not credible, and I'm going to show you why in just a moment. But let's go to this for some further evidence, because the fiance to one of the men who was dead in that backyard, April Mahoney, arrived almost 2 days later, January 9th, 9 p.m. And Mahoney arrives at Willis's home, according to the timeline, after seeing the vehicles owned by two of these missing men are parked right on the street. She knocks on the door. Nobody answers. Now, she can't figure out how to get in because there's a fence, as you can see in this photo, all around the house. So she's not taking no for an answer. She decides to break into the home through a basement window. Mahoney decides to break into the home through a basement window, according to the friends of the deceased. She calls out for Willis once inside the house to no avail, and once on the first floor, she sees a body on the back porch, according to the two friends. Then she calls the police. Here's why this is important. She's screaming for him even in his own house, and he's not hearing her. She's breaking in, and Willis is not hearing her or responding to any of this commotion. Does this make any sense to you, that she could go into his house and from inside his house quickly see the body of one of these missing men outside? She saw it through his own window. He must have seen the same. But don't worry, Jordan Willis has an excuse for all of this. He says the reason he didn't hear the prior knocking, the reason he didn't hear the knocking from the fiance, the reason he didn't hear somebody break into his house, the reason he didn't hear anybody scream his name is because, of course, he was wearing noise-canceling headphones the whole time. But wait, there's more. Now we learned from Willis's attorney that he wasn't even home the whole time. He was only there sporadically, meaning he had to leave out that front door and see his two friends' vehicles right in front of his house.
Sure. I don't know about whether or not they went to the house or tried to contact him, but he was home sporadically. I know another allegation I've seen floating out there is that he would have had to put the dogs out, that the dogs would have went in the backyard, and that's untrue as well.
All of this leads us to two very big and very obvious questions. One, how did these guys die? How did they end up dead in Willis's backyard? Now, there's a lot of people speculating that these guys froze to death. Well, it was cold, but it wasn't that cold the night that these three men died. In fact, it was in the 30s, and these guys are from Kansas City. They're very much used to this type of weather. It couldn't have been that they just froze to death all at the same time in the same backyard. Nobody would have gone to get help somewhere, or gotten in their car, or done any number of things. This just doesn't add up. It doesn't make any sense. It's more likely maybe that these guys were up a little bit later on than they should have been, and maybe they were partying a bit hard, which is why people are waiting for the toxicology reports.
We also asked Willis's attorney if drugs played a role in this, and he said that he couldn't really speak to that at this point, but that they were continuing to look into what exactly happened on this night at that Northland home.
This leads us to a sort of hybrid theory that these three friends were maybe all intoxicated and they went out into the backyard and they passed out. Because it was cold, they did freeze to death in as much as them being passed out led to that fate. But they weren't just wandering around outside and the cold got to them. Still leaves a lot of questions though, doesn't it? Why were these three outside? Why were they outside if they were intoxicated to begin with? Why wasn't Jordan Willis with them? What's going on here? So not everything's solved just yet, but I think we're getting a more clear picture of what may have happened that night. And that brings us to question number 2. Is it at all possible or realistic that Jordan Willis never knew for 2 full days that his 3 friends were dead in his own backyard? No. And here's why. Let me bring you back to that blurred out window at the beginning of this video. This window is kind of key for me. And the reason is because this window is right by Jordan Willis's kitchen, where he must have had something to eat over the course of 2 days. And as you can see, this window very clearly looks out onto the porch of his home. What was on the porch of Jordan Willis's home? Back to the timeline. On January 9th at 9:51, after the cops were called by the fiancé, officers arrive at the home and confirm that there's a body on the porch, according to a spokesman. Officers also locate 2 other bodies in the backyard and speak with Willis, who was cooperative, they said. They said there was no obvious signs of foul play observed at or near the crime scene. Important thing being that what we had here was a body on the patio, on the porch area, and 2 other bodies in the backyard. This window that he must have walked by countless times in 2 days, it looks right out there where the body was. How could he not have seen his friends dead in the backyard? Does this make any sense to you? Let me know what you think in the comments below. I thank you for watching the video. Please like and subscribe for more videos just like this every single week.